exception handling. So that is like, exception handling is a error handling, right? An exception is an event which occurs during the execution of a program. This disrupts the normal flow of the program's instruction. Okay. Let's say I have like, integer a equal to 30, b equal to 0, and c equal to a by b. Okay. What is the output of the program? It will give you arithmetic exception, because it is any number cannot be divided by 0. Okay. See, the moment there is an error in the program, right, it crashes the program, right? It crashes the program here itself. It doesn't go any further. So it does not display this line at all, right? Okay, now let me run this. So it has thrown an exception saying that exception in thread main java.lang.arithmetic exception divide by 0 error, right? Divide by 0 error means it is not able to divide. See, if you look at here, this line did not execute. Program ends here. Okay, it's basically because the program has crashed over here. It is not able to divide, like, perform this operation. In that case, what I do is I'll put it in a try block. Try. Okay. Then okay, now what happens if I put it in a try catch block? Okay, put it try catch block. If there is an error, it comes to catch block. It catches the error, displays whatever it is required. Program does not crash. See, if you see here, program ends here also will be displayed in this case. See here, java.lang.arithmetic exception. Okay, arithmetic exception is like, defined in java.lang. Lang is a package, so java.lang.arithmetic exception is defined. The error is divide by 0 error. Program ends here. See, this is displayed here also. See here, this also is getting displayed. Okay, fine. So okay, so you put to catch the errors, you specify try catch block, and you can specify finally also. Okay, so if there is the finally is whether a normal execution or like, even if all the statements in the try block is executed successfully, the control goes to finally block and then comes out of it. And even if there is an error in the catch block, okay, it performs and finally will be executed. Okay, let's look at in the regular scenario, like, so it will print the result is 3, and in the finally block program ends here. This is what gets printed here. See here, result is 3. Okay, in the finally block, and program ends here. If I make it as 0, then it will give you division by error, 0 error, that is exception it will throw, and then finally block will be executed. At the end, whether the try, if the successful execution, also finally block executed. Non-successful execution, if there is an exception, also catch block will come. From the catch block, finally block, it will be executed. See here. Okay, division by error 0. It did not print the output. Result is, if you observe, so it got here. Okay, then finally block and program ends here. My question is, why do I need to have a finally block? Okay, for you to answer, why do I need to have finally block? Why do you think it is required? In a practical scenario, okay, why do you think it is required? So basically, at the end, you want to release the memory, allocated memory. That's what many people have responded, right? For example, let's say if you look at a real-time scenario, you have a printer, right? Your system is connected to your printer, right? So you're allocating memory for the printer object, right? So you may have to explicitly release it for the resource using .close function. Okay, see, like the way I have not used it ideally, but you know, if I use a scanner, right, it should say, see, scanner, if I use, okay, I'm supposed to, at the end I should say sc.close, okay, so that closes the connection with for me, right? So this closing operations and all you can do in finally block. Even if I don't do it, it should do automatically, but ideally I should close all the closing operations, whether successful execution or a non-successful execution, will have to give it in finally block. I can release the memory for allocated objects. For a printer object, if I have, like, you know, obtain the object for a printer, then there is any error or non-successful execution also, okay, the printer object which I have got it should be released in the finally block. Okay, that's finally block. Let's look at what the slides has to say. Exception in thread main java.lang.arithmetic exception divided by 0. This is what we looked at it. Okay, array index out of bounds exception, null pointer exception, right? So basically these are the couple of exceptions. You have a lot more exceptions. Array index bound exception is that you're trying to access the array out which are out of bounds. Let's say, like, you know, you define one array int a, okay, equal to new int, okay, then 5, okay, 5 elements you have allocated, and you are trying to access a subscript of 20 equal to 40. So okay, duplicate variable name a1 a6, a is already defined here. Okay, now it has to throw an exception, means array index out of bounds, like, you know, index is you're accessing which is not in the boundary. See here. Okay, first it is throwing the arithmetic exception. That's a problem. Okay, now let me comment on this. See here. Array index out of bounds exception. Now you are accessing 2811, which is not there. Finally block program ends here. That's what is array index out of bounds exception. And null pointer exception is, let's say you have a like, you know, object, right, which is declared as null and you are trying to access. Let's say I will define a pack, this one, class of exception 1 even, which is assigned to null. Okay, then I'm trying to access one method of exception 1. Okay, now I will say even dot display. So I have not allocated any memory for the class, and I'm trying to access the object of it. So you get null pointer exception, right? There is no memory allocated for the object even. So from where it will perform the display? It throws, you are referring to null and you are, like, you know, expecting me to do something. So that is not possible, right? Whenever an illegal operation is performed or some issue is there, it will throw an exception. But in like a C++, it crashes if you try to access the pointer which is not initialized. The same thing like null pointer exception. Okay, but in Java you can catch and try catch. Okay. Now, so there are, like, you know, checked exceptions, runtime exceptions, and error. So checked exceptions are a compilation time, right? Checked exceptions are checked at compilation time, right? For example, right, I define one private variable, inside, okay, here. So I say a dot private equal to 400. So S1 dot. So it is done at compilation time only. So since it is we have, okay, so build automatically. So the moment I make the changes, okay, so this option is set. That's why it immediately compiles. The moment you type one line, so it compiles. Okay, so this is, okay, this is compilation time checking. It means if a method is throwing a checked exception, then it should handle the exception using try catch block, or it should declare the exceptions using throws keyword. We will look at what is throws keyword in a short while. Otherwise, the program will give a compilation error. So exception is what is error handling. That's all. Right? For example, okay, let's say I use you will learn something called threads you can have in the public main, okay, thread dot sleep, okay, 1000 milliseconds. So immediately throws an error saying that it should be put in the try catch block, and it throws IO exception, okay, interrupted exception. Okay, you have to handle this, otherwise I'm not able to handle this. It's a compilation time, it throws an error. Unhandled exception type interrupted exception. So you have to add throws class. You have to say this throws. Then only it works. Okay, otherwise I'm not able to execute. It will throw an error. Right? So that's a compilation time. Checked exceptions. Exceptions is errors, that's all. At compilation time. See, right now let's not look into thread.sleep. When I look at when we look at multi-threading, you will look at this. At compilation time, you will look at the errors and see, okay, is there any error? Okay. Okay. Now let's look at runtime exception. Unchecked exceptions are not checked at compile time. It means if your program is throwing an unchecked exception, and even if you did not declare that exception, the program won't give a compilation error. It is up to the programmer to judge the conditions in advance, and you can cause the such exception and handle them appropriately. All unchecked exceptions are direct subclasses of runtime exception class. Okay, so that means runtime. Right now we have looked at like a null pointer exception, array index out of bounds exception. Then we looked at couple of more classes, a couple of more exceptions, like one more divide by zero arithmetic exception. All these exceptions are runtime exceptions. Errors. So errors are like it's like the hardware error is there, memory error, okay, something like that. There are exceptional conditions that are external to the application, and that the application usually cannot anticipate or recover from. For example, if a stack overflow occurs, error will arise. This will also ignore at the time of compilation. A stack is a problem. Stack is overflow is that you don't have any space in the stack. Okay, memory is full, right? Hard disk is full. Couple of errors where you don't have a control, right? So those kind of things. Check the exceptions. It will check at the compilation time. Runtime exceptions. It will not be able to judge at the compilation time. It will do only the runtime. And errors are the errors which arise like hardware, like something like that. Okay, these are all the exceptions, throwable exceptions, runtime exceptions, arithmetic exception, array exception, index out of bounds exception, lot of things, null pointer exception. You have a lot more exceptions, right? Only when you require it, you will do it, right? What is exceptional handling? Okay, Suresh is asking what is stack overflow. Okay, stack overflow is like you know what is a stack, right? So the stack is that whenever you declare a variable, it gets stored on memories allocated on top of the stack, right? You will have that variable in the stack. I will define 1 lakh variables and the stack is full, right? So I have like it can store up to 1 lakh attributes. After that, stack is totally full. So what you will do is the system will give an error saying that stack is full, stack overflow error. Okay, I will not be able to allocate any more. Okay, Nilesh asks, can you show me one error? Error, I have to generate the error, Nilesh. Okay, I'll generate the error and show it. Let's allocate a lot of memory, put the Stack Overflow and then show it. Okay, Vishal says uh, can the small questions be looked at Google rather than asking very small questions in the class so that we can move forward? I don't know, Vishal, how to address this. Okay, but for now I will leave it whichever the question comes I'll address, right? Okay, Siddhartha says I also feel the same, rather than asking very small questions in the class. Okay, can the people look at Google? Okay, no problem. Okay, oh my god, people are adding. No, Nilesh, it's not for you. So okay, not a problem. So so here, if you look at exception handling, divide by 0 error will come. If it is an array, 3 elements are there. If I refer 3, it is you are referring to the 4th element. That is 4th element is not there. That's why array index out of bounds exception will come. So this example. Okay, now it's here you're defining 5 by 0. It is a divide by error, divide by 0 error, right? Okay, exception handling. If there is a runtime error, then program is crashed and control goes out of the program. This issue can be resolved by exception handling. Mainly try, catch, and finally keywords are used for exception handling. That's what I have demoed to you, right? So try all the statements to be executed should be placed in the try block. If the catch, if there is an issue or runtime errors, control comes in the catch block. Runtime errors in the sense runtime exceptions means finally whether successful or unsuccessful execution statements inside the finally block gets executed. Right? So this is a try, do something, my catch here something, finally this is a syntax. Finally block is required to release the resources and required for cleanup purpose, which you all have answered that. Right. So there's an exception handling, so it is int A250 b equal to 0, so divide by error will come. Okay. Then exception handling, one try can have multiple catch blocks. In this scenario, it depends on the type of the execution thrown corresponding catch block is invoked, right? See, since all the okay, now before let me move on to this one and show you what is it. So let's look at this program. Okay, I can have multiple catch blocks for one try block, right? So I have integer 25 b equal to 0, c equal to c. I have defined c equal to a by b is printed this one. So in the first block I have defined, and the first catch block I have defined exception. In the second block I have defined arithmetic exception. right? So which exception? See, ideally it should throw, right? Arithmetic exception, divide by zero error. Okay. Now my question is, will it go to exception, or it will go arithmetic exception, or it is throwing error? Okay. So like, why exactly it is throwing the error, right? In what way we can fix it? So okay, before I go there, like, in this scenario, will it call exception or arithmetic exception? Take 30 seconds of time, think about it. Okay, arithmetic exception is derived from exception. So all the exceptions is handled by exception only. Okay, so that information I can give you. So it will go to exception only because all the exceptions base class only will handle. So it says it is never reached. Okay, I saw all your answers. Thanks for responding. Okay, now see, it says it is never reached. If you see the error, unreachable catch block for arithmetic exception, it already handled by the catch block for exception. So the lowest one, exception, you put it at the first. Okay, then it will catch the exception. Okay, so you can have multiple. See, you can have array index out of bounds exception. All these exceptions you can put here. To the corresponding exception. Okay, but if you put exception in the beginning, it doesn't go forward because all the exceptions can be handled by this exception. See, here the moment I put this before these two exceptions, it will throw an error. See, unreachable code, it doesn't even go down. Let's say compilation, like, check the exception, compilation time. See here, unreachable catch block for arithmetic exception, it's already handled by the catch block for exception. This is already catched. So this never goes here. All the exceptions it will handle. So generic exception it is. So it's like it doesn't go any further down. So if you want to put an exception, you put this exception at the end. Okay. Suresh asked a question, if everything is caught in exception, then why do we need specific exceptions? Yes. Okay. Why do we need specific exception is, if corresponding exception is obtained, you can perform that particular operation. Okay. If null pointer exception is obtained, then you can see the memory is not allocated for that object and perform the operation. If array index bounds exception is there, then you can check the size of the array and perform the operation, right? Based on the corresponding exception, you can take action. Okay, so if it is a generic exception, you will not know. But if you have not listed all, if you are taken care of all the exceptions, still some exception comes, let it go to a generic exception, right? 404 error, like, it is page not found in the web technology, 404 error. So like, if you handle 404, that's fine. If it is not, it comes to the generic exception, right? So specific exceptions, you know what operation to take care. If it is not, if it is generic, then you can only just display, that's all. Okay, Suresh, have you got it? Okay. So that's what is a program on multiple catch blocks, right? So static main, so you're defining a variable here, divide by zero error, arithmetic exception, array index bound exception, finally no. The same program I had shown it to you, right? Nested try catch block. Right? Inside, see, this is also like, you can do it. Say inside one try, you have try catch here, right? Why use nested try block? Sometimes a situation may arise, okay, where a part of the block may cause one error and the entire block itself cause another error. In such cases, exception handler to be nested, right? So you okay, so like you have a try catch block is there. Inside that there is a requirement for another try catch block. We shall ask a question like that means we should not find any code in any project without try catch block. We shall put all the statements inside try catch block. You are running very safely, right? It is always best. Otherwise you don't know where it may exit, where it may crash, right? It is always good to put your code in try catch block. Nesting is possible. That's what let's say you have a try and this try catch is there, okay, and this catch is for this up parent try, okay. Now let's say that's what it is said. This catch block is for this parent, this catch block is for this inner try block. Okay, what is a throw? Okay, see here what I'm doing is I'm defining one variable age, scanner class, printing this message, age equal to sc.nextInt. So that means I'm reading one integer variable, whatever the next variable, next data which is coming in the input stream is, that is the integer you will assign to variable age. If the age is less than 18, then you're throwing an exception. So see, there are two ways that exception can arise. That is, one, system can throw an exception. Second, developer can throw an exception, right? So you have the capacity to throw the exception, right? You say if the age is less than 18, throw new. New means it's a memory allocation for exception. Exception is a class, so you are allocating memory for exception class, and this is what you are giving a message, right? It's the same thing like divide by zero error, like arithmetic exception is thrown by the system. Okay, same way the throw is called inside Java, right? Now developer also can throw an exception, that is throw, right? Let me run this code. Okay, I will enter 70. Okay, 18 I'll enter. You say you're eligible for voting. Now I'll enter 16, not 17, right? Java.lang.exception not eligible for voting. Okay, this is what it is. So like here I have developer is throwing an exception. Okay, so let me look at the presentation. If there is a chance of a serious logic error or operational error, then developer can also throw an exception. For example, if you are developing software for election for voting, minimum age required is 18. If the voter's age is below 18, then we cannot continue any further as the basic requirement itself is not met. Hence, the developer can throw an exception. Okay, example 2, in banking application, one user can user account is blocked or closed, and if the bank gets the check to clear the amount from the account, then it is not possible to continue any further. Hence, developer can throw an exception. See, bank account is closed, but from that account a check is being issued to clear the money. So definitely developer has to throw that exception, account closed, because you cannot continue any further. You cannot handle error. It's the serious error, right? So all the possible scenarios, developer has to use the throw keyword to throw the exception. Wherever it is required, developer has to throw. The same thing if you see here, throw new exception. So please look at this example. Take 30 seconds, 45 seconds, please look at this example. Okay. Okay, so now what is throws? Okay, now well, you can set the error code, otherwise you can specify your own exceptions and handle that. Right? One way is you can say you can set the error and error code, or you can extend your exception class, okay, and perform that operation, create the object of it, and send it back so that you can handle it. Okay, Vian, have you got it? Okay. Throws. What is throws here? Okay. Before going into throws, okay, I will give you one example, right? You go to many places, they will put a notice board saying that we are not responsible for your belongings. That is, okay, you give it to us, we'll perform the operation. After that, we are not responsible, right? So let's say, even if you perform, if you go to a operation theater, okay, doctors will get the signature from the relatives saying that if anything goes wrong, we are not responsible, right? Only if you say yes, we'll perform the operation. Otherwise, we don't do it, right? So something very similar to that is a throws concept. That is, if you call a function says I'm not going to handle the exceptions for you. I will throw the exceptions back at you. If there are any, then you will handle it, right? So that is what the throws is, right? Now, let's say I'm writing one function int check age. I'll change it to divide by 0. If you look at, okay, here I'm declaring an object of exception 1, that is this class only. Then I'm taking two numbers and calling div method with passing x and y, right? Now, it is taking two arguments, performing the operation and returning it. In case if there is an exception comes in this program, it says throws exception. This function throws by, if there is any exception from this, it throws at the main itself, the calling function, and the calling function handles it. See, ideally this div is not supposed to handle the exception. It is not handling. It says that I will do the operation whatever you give it to me. If there is any exception or anything like that, I'll give it back to you, right? I'm not responsible. You handle it for me. You handle it, right? So now the calling is over here. Any exception comes here, it comes to this. Okay. So result is 5. So this is normal execution. I will say 0. See, arithmetic exception. Okay, java.lang arithmetic. It has thrown the exception divided by 0 error. Okay, that is what it is. Now if you look at design requirement, if in an organization employee provides a service, if there are any issues in some scenarios, it is not possible for the employees to handle and it has to be escalated to the management to handle it. For example, contract signatures, handling legal issues, etc. Okay. Similarly, in Java, method which provides the service may not be required to handle certain exceptions. Okay, and those exceptions should be handled by the calling function. That's what I said. Okay, throws will be used next to the function declaration statement as given below. See here, so you will define return type, name of the function, the default arguments or the arguments, and you have to specify the throws keyword over here. Okay, this statement states that function test will not handle IO exception and the calling function will handle these IO exception. Calling function is responsible for IO exceptions. Okay, many exceptions can be added by adding comma operator as given below. So if you want to handle, you don't want to handle multiple exceptions, you can specify through IO exception, comma array index point of exception. Any exception like that, it is throwing to the calling function. The same thing, like what the same thing I have given over here. Okay, it throws an exception, it comes and catches over here. Okay, this function will not handle the exception. It says that I'm not going to handle the exception. Whoever is calling me, they will handle. I just throw if there is an exception from the function. I'll just perform what it has been told to me. That's all. Okay, so that completes the exception handling.